The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a specialist recruitment agency operating in the metals, engineering and manufacturing industry sectors. Enjoy the pod.
Hey guys, Peter Mike.
The Metal Guys.
I've been getting roasted for 20 minutes now before we've started this. We're joined today by Kirsty from Professional Polishing and now the Women with Metal podcast / event.
Close.
Here's what the right things.
So you're getting there. So it's Women in Industry podcast and Women with Metal Limited. So we're now a limited company.
And Professional Polishing.
And Professional Polishing Services.
You just put Kirsty Metal, it just comes to your address.
It probably will.
The Royal Mail, just no. We'll just try it. We'll just put Kirsty Metal and go straight through.
How are you?
I'm all right. I'm not too bad. I don't know, what day is it? Tuesday? You've promised me a pint afterwards, so this is great.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, we've just worked out you've done a lot more podcasts than we have.
Yeah.
We might have lights and some cameras.
Yeah.
But you're just smashing them out now. 2 tomorrow.
Yeah.
How come you've gone heavy into pod?
Because I didn't know any better, which is a really good reason to start doing things, I guess. So when I first started recording them, I'd said I'll release one a week. So we've released one a week. So I'll try and have 2 or 3 sort of recorded. I suppose I've had up to about 6 recorded, just in case when I go to release it, there's a technical difficulty like the sound disappearing or...
Have you had that?
I've had that twice. I've had to re-record 2 and I had one where no matter what we did, we couldn't get a camera to work. So when you watch it, she's just like a black screen.
Yeah, I know. We've had it where we forgot cables.
Anything else, Mike?
What else?
I also forgot to turn one of the cameras on and forgot to turn the mics on for one, the whole pod. And also, when we first started using these mics, they kept cutting just consistently. So
I'm like that person in the relationship. It just turns up right at the end. And then when it doesn't go right, has an opinion on it. And you're like, well, you haven't helped, have you? And you're like, no.
Well, one of the best things, so I haven't got this fancy setup like you lot have, I'm just like a poor metal basher up a corner.
In the corner.
Wait 1 second. Can you hear the violins? Symphony orchestra's turned up.
We've got a wall
I've
over
got
there.
the CBSO turning up later.
We got half a job Pete here with the painting. I mean,
I
at what
did
point?
notice that.
What point did he stop there? I mean, not like anyone can
The
say.
can ran out. I ran out of paint. That was the last bit.
It's just poor planning, that's what it is. Poor planning.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
You should have known how much paint you'd have needed.
They should have worked the yield
I've
out,
got another
mate.
can.
Well, then you should have opened it.
Yeah.
I was busy. I was busy doing some work.
Yeah.
No, I had to reschedule a podcast last week because I'd had a new phone and I used my iPhone as the camera on a tripod linked to this software through Camo. And I didn't realise by having a new phone, the actual connector would be different. And it was about 3 minutes before I was due to record with Beth Bevan from Siemens Energy. And I just couldn't get the cable into the phone. Luckily, I'd kept my old phone that was at home, so that is now dedicated to the podcast.
It's like when I turned up to the beers to say event and I got the right cables to record. So I had to leave, try and be like really calm about it, and then drive as quickly as I could to Richer Sounds or somewhere to get a cable to come back. And, you're literally plugging it in with about 2 minutes to go, and Rob's going, "You're right there, Pete." I was like, yeah, fine, yeah. I just need to get this cable, Rob, from the office, which I hadn't got. But yeah, how are you finding it? How are you finding the podcast? Because I think when we started them, we just did it probably similar to you. We were like, well, let's just start doing some podcasts. Let's just start talking about the industry. Let's just start meeting people and having a natter, really. But since you've started doing it, any kind of learnings from it? Anything that you've taken away and thought, actually, I'm quite happy that I've done this. This has been valuable for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've personally got quite a few things out of it. The main one is I've just been introduced to some fantastic women who are doing some great things, and they're really, really easy to talk to. One of the main issues I have is keeping us to around 20, 25 minutes because we do it as a conversation. I'll do some research on them, stalk their LinkedIn profile and website a bit, and we'll use what they're most interested in or what they're talking about most recently as the start of the conversation. But So last year at the UK Metals Expo, I did led 2 panel discussions. And the one I led on inclusivity within the metals industry was arranged by Tata Steel, and they asked for me. And then I recorded, I think it's their Steelcast, about 20 minutes on that live as well. So I was like, ooh, Tata Steel know who I am. I don't do steel, I only do stainless and aluminium. But so that was quite nice. And then I've done another couple of speaking gigs down in London where they've literally gone to LinkedIn and put in women in manufacturing, women in industry, blah, 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 and found me through that. So yeah, it's been quite good.
You've clearly been pushing personal brand. We spoke, Mike and I were talking off record a while back and we were saying you were kind of doing all this personal branding stuff before personal branding became a personal brand thing, people were talking about it. You've always done it, but it seems like more recently you've gone like deep, you've gone heavy into it.
Did you know you were creating a personal brand? Like, I've known you since probably 2011, around that time.
Oh, baby.
Yeah. Now, did you realise you were doing it at the time you were doing it? And because everyone talks about, I don't know, personal brands, you got to have one.
I mean,
obviously, you've done it ever since.
No, I was just showing off. I'm a natural show off. Give me a platform or a stage, and I'm going to be front line and centre. I can't help it. I will go to meetings or to something, and I'll sit there and I'll go, right, okay, don't say anything, don't ask the first question, don't do this, don't give your opinion. And I sit there and I'm like, literally, and then I was like, I can't help it. I try really hard not to be that annoying, but I am. So there was a platform and I jumped on it and enjoyed it. It helped. It helps that I was fairly visible in the industry I'm in anyway, or even in the Birmingham business community, because I'd get called that polishing woman or that metal woman, because everybody else would be a lawyer or an accountant or just not in manufacturing when you were talking about visible female leaders. So I got quite a few things out of it. I did a modelling career programme thing with Hobbs. So did a campaign with them. That was great. Probably about 10, 12 years ago. And then last year, I purposely decided I was going to push my personal brand for several reasons. I'd got quite a lot of non-exec roles that weren't paying me, and some that were. And I thought, well, I want to either keep the ones that are near to my heart that aren't paying me, but get rid of the others and look to how I can maximise additional revenue streams. And again, I'd got the podcast that I was getting ready to start, but I'd sort of lost my nerve a bit. And then I accidentally held a sold-out conference. But it all was because that Christmas I got bored because I'd had a week off work. And I thought I'd give myself a really big goal to try and achieve.
What did that tell you, going back, because you said there's a number of reasons, because there's definitely like a moment where you go, right, sometimes you've got an idea that's swimming round or germinating first. Sometimes it can be years, can't it? And then all of a sudden it's like, bang, right, I'm ready to do it now. So was it just that you were bored, or had you just almost like got that earworm in music and you just couldn't not hear it?
No, I blame True Pal, because True's really visible around the Birmingham scene and the London scene now. He's done great things, and he's always been a sort of multi-business owner. A lot of them were events and all sorts of things. And in COVID, I think he's got about 3 or 4 businesses and they all had to shut. So he reinvented himself as like a thought leader, and he's on Good Morning Britain sort of every other week. And then when that was really taking off, he started doing courses and webinars on personal brand and, showing people how to walk the walk. And he did a spotlight course January 2023, and I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to get advice from somebody who's done it. So I did his course, and by the time I finished the 6-week course, the podcast had started. I'd got my own website, I'd got the Women in Industry website, and then a few months later I'd book the conference.
You've got a polishing business that's been around for
40 years, yeah.
and then you're looking at doing other things to bring in revenue. What was it that you thought go for the personal brand way of what you're trying to achieve, and not going, what else can we polish? Almost develop that business and go into tube polishing or go into more into the RA polishing, and really go into the real niche sectors, hand polishing, and like where you can almost, there's so many industries you could take polishing.
Yeah.
Why didn't you go, what made you think, I don't want to go through that route? That's obviously been through your family, and then going on, that's quite the easy route, I suppose, would be to just develop professional polishing, do other lines, continue doing that, instead of doing the hard thing, which is putting yourself out there. I know you said you was a lot of the honest answer of saying you were sharp, but it's still hard to just put yourself out there to be judged, isn't it?
It is, and I get where you're going. You have to look at logistics. We've got a really big factory, sort of 40,000 square foot. We put a new line in probably 18 months ago. With the volume of material that we turn over now and we have in and out, we haven't really got space for any other really large polishing line. And if we were going to go into round tube, we'd want to do it properly, not play at it. So, that's probably £250,000, £300,000 investment in an automatic line. That's going to take up room we don't have. Then the material coming in is going to take up room we don't have. We are looking at more investment at PPS. And you mentioned hand polishing as well. I've had lots of conversations on hand polishing. And one of the routes we will go, I've got a few more projects to complete first, but one of the projects I am keen to do is one of my contacts who builds machines. They are really focusing on robotics for hand polishing type items. And if you look at hand polishers, there are thousands of them around the country. And I think a lot of them are suffering more with the skill shortage than general manufacturing, because it's an art. It takes years to learn to do it properly. And, it is a mucky job. And I think they're struggling to get new talent in. So moving it to robotics, if you go to JLR or anywhere like that, their polishing shops are all robotics. That, for me, one of the steps in my sort of like before I die plan is to buy a small hand polisher and automate them through robotics. Mainly, I just want a robot. I'm being fairly selfish about it.
We have robotic polishers on our books and hand polishers who are great. Those who are listening to Kirsty are also in the polishing business. Telephone number 0121 285 4287.
Do you suffer from any of these problems? Are you asking around your office trying to find a new supplier or source materials? Have you got aged or high-priced stock that you'd like to liquidate anonymously? Or would you like new business from customers that are guaranteed to pay you for your materials? If the answer to any of the above is yes, then you'll be pleased to know that the Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by SteelBuy. SteelBuy are a digital platform revolutionising the way businesses trade metal products online. SteelBuy offers risk-free trading where sellers are guaranteed to be paid, and automated processing including certification, logistics and invoicing. The network of vetted buyers and sellers is continually growing, and it's all housed in an easy-to-use trading platform accessible on any device. The online business-to-business marketplace for products is rapidly gathering pace, and SteelBuy are ideally positioned to capture the changing demands of steel buyers. So check out SteelBuy today and be part of the future of metal trading. Now let's jump back into the podcast. I don't want to go straight into PPS, because obviously we've been talking about these new events. I think let's just stick with that for now. Talk about this first conference that you put on. Obviously both myself and Jacob went down to come and film it and take a look at it, and it was great. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. It was a really fantastic event. How did you find it doing that? Because you've obviously, it's putting your money where your mouth is, and you, again, as Mike was alluding to in that last question, it's kind of on you. I know at the last event, sorry, I'm asking a really long question here. You mentioned to me, I don't want it to be all about me. I want it to be the event, not just the Kirsty show. But the first one is kind of on you. So talk us through, the good and the bad and how you got that thing off the ground so quickly.
Again, I didn't know any better. So my big goal I decided I wanted to achieve by the time I was 55 was paying off our mortgage. So I was like, okay, where am I going to find that money from? What can I do? But with the 40th anniversary of PPS last year and my 35th anniversary in the industry this year, it made me reevaluate. I ain't got that much longer left. If you look at 35 years I've worked in it and maybe 15 I've got ahead of me, that's going to go by really, really fast. So I started questioning what my legacy is. What have I done? What can I do? And I thought, I know an awful lot of women in manufacturing. I'm finding more and more with the podcast. I'm being introduced to more and more. LinkedIn is amazing for that. And basically, I blame Mike for the whole conference idea. Because he rang me up and suggested I held an afternoon tea. Which,
Quine.
Which I took in the spirit that he actually meant.
How awfully British.
I know. And it did get me thinking that...
Is that what you suggested?
I can't remember. I just remember ringing, and it's like, you know, when you have something going in your head. Because I was like, when we done the Compton Cup...
And then there was golf days.
And then there's golf days. I was like, we're doing things. And it's like, it's hard when our business is predominantly male, and then you kind of, and you're doing things, and it's always the same thing. But then you're speaking to a lot of, for us, we speak to a lot of the HR managers who are predominantly a female.
Yeah, they're all women.
They're generally all women. So a lot of our clients, when you're putting things on, you're almost like, they're just not included.
Yeah.
So it was more of just, I was waiting for my kids to come out of school, and I was like, I'll just give Kirsty a call. And it was more like, just go in my head, and I was like, just play with it in a way.
Yeah, so where did you go from that then?
So that was the Wednesday.
Yeah.
And on the Friday, I'd got 5 speakers booked for the conference, literally within 48 hours. And I have to say a huge thank you to all the speakers who came to the first conference.
Yeah, they were good.
Because they all did it for nothing. They all did it for a donation to charity to sort of support me. Obviously, me and my husband very kindly backed me up, and we used some of our savings as to pay for it if we didn't make the money.
I rang you, innit?
Yeah. If nobody had bought a ticket, you know, we'd have lost a few grand. But it was about putting your money where your mouth is. But
that's
yeah,
the bit
I just
no one
did
sees,
it quickly.
isn't it? That's the bit no one sees.
Oh, you should have seen me when I signed the paperwork for the ICC for this year.
Yeah, I know. That's the bit no one sees, isn't it? Like that bit, then you put yourself out there, because I think that's really tough. Like, really, I've just worked on the PYL. So when Pete was like doing this, it was like coming join. That I was scared. And even now, every year, you get scared. It's not naturally in me to be able to just put yourself out and do an idea. But when you listen to yourself, Pete, there's other people who come to like the other events, just naturally go, just back myself.
I think if you don't know you can't do it and you have a go at doing it, you'll either do it or you won't. And I've never arranged events before. Park Regis, where we held the conference in 2023, were really helpful. The speakers were great. That's part of their job description, particularly Justice Williams, Denise Morris and Steph Sneyd. You know, they do this for a living. So I could ring them up and go, help. Silly things like learning to use Canva, and I'd do a graphic and put it out there, and I'd just get a WhatsApp from Denise going, send me the file. I'll make it look better. And I'm like, me. And she did, and it was great. So I just stopped trying to play with Canva and just sent them to her. And
what do you look for in a speaker? You know, for those who are listening, who are like maybe thinking, "Oh, I'd actually quite like to speak to that." What do you kind of look for in a speaker for the event?
I had 2 things that I really wanted regarding the speakers last year. One was to engage the audience, and 2 was to be able to deliver a return on investment, because we can't underestimate all those companies that paid for themselves, their colleagues, their team members to go and attend the conference. They were putting themselves out there as well. They were putting their faith in me. I'm very, very grateful for it. But they needed to have a return on investment. So I needed someone to learn at least a couple of things that they didn't know before. And this year, we're looking for similar. We want to make sure there's return on investment. I've got a lot of lessons learned from last year.
What are the speakers talking about for those who perhaps, who haven't heard or thinking of coming, and they might be thinking, oh, I'll pay for my own ticket and have a day's holiday. What kind of things would they be exposed to of learning and listening to?
So we're still finalising the speakers and the guest list, but some of the topics we're going to be discovering. We're going to look at how anyone, men or women, can separate work stress from their personal life. So when you're having that really bad day and you go home and it's still playing on your mind, you wake up at 2:00 in the morning, there are lots of ways you can minimise that. And that's going to be good for your mental health. It's going to be good for your performance at work the next day when you go back and deal with that challenge, because you won't have been up thinking about it and going around in circles. And a lot of people do learn to do that, but they learn to do it through really bad situations. And you sort of come out the other end and you've learned these lessons, but it wasn't a very pleasant learning experience. We're going to look at finances. Again, we had a finance section last year. The finance section we're looking at this year, we're looking at how to turn 50 quid into 10 grand. The quickest way to do it. So how to make your money work for you like you're a rich person. So, if I've got 50 quid spare a month, I'm going to just shove it in the building society or something. But there are ways, if you understand the risks, that even on that level, investment and understanding compound interest and all of this can actually get you there years ahead of the goal. So we've got someone in to teach us how to do that. We're going to be looking at communication skills and how to flex them, how to talk to people, how to make sure that you're talking to people, how they're going to respond to you the best way. It's really easy for people to go, oh, this is me, take me or leave me. But everyone with a good communication style will flex it. So you're still staying true to yourself, but you're not going to go in really direct if somebody is, sort of going to get a bit shell-shocked at that, and just sort of giving some pointers on how to do that. So those are the few of the ones we've got planned for this year. We're going to have a panel discussion with some of our wonderful sponsors on the panel about representation and equity in the workplace. And I'm giving a huge shout out to Lloyds Bank, who are our headline sponsor, Control Energy Costs, who are a platinum sponsor, PPS, who are a gold sponsor, Prime Chartered Accountants, who are a silver sponsor, and some more to be revealed soon. That was the plug. They've given me money. Yeah, I love them. I love them. It just means I can pay for the ICC and, not get divorced, which is really helpful.
Well, you phoned me, didn't you, when you said, yeah, I've just put my deposit down at the ICC. It's like, how'd you feel? And you were like, I feel all right.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
I'm okay. Where do you see it going forward? How do you see this event developing? Well, is it going to be multi-day? Is it going to be in different parts of the country? Just give us kind of your thoughts on it after your one and small event.
Yeah, we did a regional event in Birmingham because I'm from the West Midlands in January, and that was a lot smaller. We sort of had 30 max, more workshop based, but also with a meal, a couple of drinks, so people could really sort of have open and honest conversations. We're going to run the regional events further north and further south as we go through the year. We're looking to do events outside of the UK. I'm currently in conversation with somebody in mainland Europe, and we will be revealing more about that soon.
Because I go to some events, these kind of... these business leadership association type of events, not just in the metal industry, but, I go to these events to kind of learn from people who are from totally different backgrounds to me and share ideas. And these conferences normally last 4 days, 5 days. Some of them are overseas, and it's great. You always come away feeling really pumped and quite amped really, because there's just, you're learning about things when they're happening. You're really ahead of the curve. But you were speaking about maybe doing some of these events where they might last for 1 to 2 days, potentially 3 days. How would they look? You know, what would they be?
It'd be great to get breakout sessions. One of the good things about being at the International Convention Centre is, you know, you can hold a meeting there from 10 people. We're going to have like 300 this year, but it will go up to, 7 or 8, 900 people. I'd like to go to multi-days. I'd like to do at least 2 days. I'd like breakout sessions. I'd like practical skills so people can learn something new. I'm talking to somebody about this year with regard to AI coming into the manufacturing sector and how it can be applied with data analytics. I'm not sure it'll work for this year's conference, but it might do for 2025. And being able to go, okay, we're doing a half day on sales skills with this sales trainer who's brilliant, a day on forensic accountancy for in-house finance managers. Get a really good forensic accountant to come in and give you some tips and tricks to do. You're not going to do it in-house completely, but give you a few more skills. And, something on HR, and that'd be absolutely fantastic. It's going to take time to build up to be able to afford it, frankly. But, yeah, that's where I'd like to go.
It's cool. Similar to us being the Metal Guys tour business, we were very aware when we chose that name that we needed to make sure that we had lots of women on the podcast. It couldn't just be blokes. Women with metal. At the moment, the first 2 events, obviously, I've been coming along to do a bit of videography and take some photos and stuff, but effectively the only man in the room. What's the plan going forward with it being called Women with Metal? Is there going to be some gender balancing going forward?
I hope so. I really do. We're doing quite well for ticket sales for 2024. I think we're 20% sold, and it's the first week of February for the end of October. We've had some lovely gentlemen buy tickets as well, which is great. It's a fine line, because one of the takeaways was that a lot of the women who attended were like, this is so refreshing to sit with other women in a safe space to talk about things like period health in the workplace, menopause in the workplace, coming back from maternity leave, and I'm breastfeeding, where do I go and pump in the loo? And all those things that affect women's life in the workplace, that they just do. And if there's 20 people in a company and 2 of them are women, there's not a lot of conversations going to be had. And a lot of the men aren't going to know, A, what they can ask, B, how they ask it, C, is it appropriate to ask that? Am I going to say the wrong thing? Blah, blah, blah.
Or we just don't know about it.
Or you just don't know about it.
We're completely oblivious, aren't we?
But
I'm still learning to pick my clothes up from the end of the bed.
Disgraceful.
On the floor.
On the floor, yeah.
The bathroom.
But a lot of the women really enjoyed that. But
yeah, I bet.
A lot of the feedback was, this is great, but we need to be letting the men know that we work with and who are going to be allies, so they know when they hear about it and everything else. So it's finding that balance, and that's what we want to do. It's going to be majority women there, but we'd definitely like more men to attend. And I'm hoping to have a male speaker who's a guy I really admire. And yeah, I'm just plucking up the courage to message him to be a speaker, because I think he'll be fantastic.
Just do it. Take your own advice.
Yeah,
just crack on with it.
It's on my list.
You organise a conference in a day.
Yeah, it's on my post-it. I've just not got to it yet, but yeah.
I think furthermore to that question, because look, we've spoken, we've already discussed this. At the first event, I said, what's the plan like? Probably need a few blokes here, a few men to turn up as well. I took a lot from both of the events, because if we take out menopause and period health and some of those things that are specific to women, they're still relevant to men, as you were just alluding to it. And I think that a lot of the topics that were being discussed, age, gender, whatever, they were relevant to anyone. So do you think you'll have to kind of have almost like a hard split between like a 70-30 or something like that? Or are you just going to kind of see how it goes and manage it as it develops?
Yeah, I'm going to manage it as it develops, where I have in my head about 70-30.
Yeah.
When you buy a ticket, it does ask your gender. So Eventbrite's keeping track for me. And it's just one of those things, I don't want to take that space away.
No, I agree with you, yeah.
If I go, so last year I went to just a breakfast briefing at the National Metformin Centre, and there was probably 35 people in the room. Grabbed my bacon butty, got my coffee, went up to a table, said hello, got grunted at by 3 men in suits, and who then immediately shook hands with other guys and introduced himself to men who came up to the table. And then Stephen Morley was there from CBM. He came over and was like, "Oh, Kirst, blah, blah, blah. Oh, will you come up and talk about this for me if you don't mind?" And I was like, "Yeah." And the guys turned around, introduced themselves to me, and they were like, "Oh, we just thought you'd come with somebody." And I was like, "It's 2023.
Yeah, what does it feel like from, you've been in the industry 35 years? Obviously, I'd like to think it's progressed a lot for where we are now. But what are the main challenges of feeling of like a woman in industry? What would you say have got better at as an industry, and what's still to be improved? Because obviously when you're talking about period out menopause, I mean, I remember working at a big distributor where ladies of a certain age are going through things. And really, it's like, when I look at how that was perhaps dealt with, it's like, really, there's no process, no structure, nothing kind of, there's nothing put in place, really. Like, it's not even being thought of. There's a lot of places where you've been to. Like, if someone was disabled and turned up for an interview, bear in mind, we wouldn't need to ask. They wouldn't be equipped for that, would they? So it's like, I mean, that's a different, separate episode. But I mean, what's it like as a woman in the industry?
Oh, I've been asked this a few times, and it's, apart from when something like that happens, and it sort of takes me aback. If we go back to me being a show-off, a lot of the people in the metals industry know me anyway. So I don't, I walk in and be like, "Hi, Kirst, how are you?" And I'll know them. I think...
Do you think you've had to be a show-off because you're a woman, though, in this sector, to almost go, "Look at me, look what I've done, you almost give me no chance"?
I think, it's difficult. I think it's definitely a lot better now than it was when I first started out. Or at least it is how people are with me and how I hear them talk to younger women. A lot of the things that were said to me when I was 19, 20 won't be said to me now because I'm in my 50s. And I hope they aren't being said to women 19, 20. But I predominantly talk to and work with men. I get on with men. And, banter is a thing. There's a difference between banter and things you really shouldn't be saying. And I don't want the banter to stop, because men are now going, "Oh, I'm not sure I'm allowed to say that blouse looks nice on you, Sheila," or something. It's because that's just not fair. It's ruining relationships. I think for me, we need more visibility of women who are doing really well. But we also need more visibility of those companies who are doing the gender balance and other EDI programs really well. I've spoken to companies who are like nearly 50% equality, but they're not telling anybody about it. They're not shouting it from the rooftops. And I really think they should be doing that, because it's going to make other people go, "Oh, if they're doing that, oh, maybe we can do that a bit more." And I think a lot of the time is people don't want to do the wrong thing and are worried they might do or say the wrong thing, so that they leave it for another day. I think there is very, very few true sort of misogynists in the industry now. Every now and again you come across one, but the majority, they might not consider the finer things like period health in the workplace, But, that's just about training. As far as I'm concerned, someone doing the training. They're not going to go, oh, we're not going to employ a woman because...
What do some of you like, the women who with, like, say, social media, obviously, the things that were probably said to you either over the phone or in business meetings were probably appalling. But do women who are coming to your event struggle with people being flirtatious perhaps on social media platforms or
LinkedIn
customers who have got
messaging is
LinkedIn messaging,
a big issue at the moment.
Perhaps work phones and WhatsApps messages through clients who are putting that person in, or when they feel trying to think, feeds me customer, and I'm the male, he's the female, and I'm being almost flirtatious, but they're thinking that person spends $100,000 a year with me as a business. Do those things get discussed? Is that a problem?
It is a problem. What's also a problem is occasionally, particularly in sales teams, if you've got a mix of genders, or there have been on occasions some men who will go to their female colleagues, oh, you're only winning more orders than me because you're wearing a short skirt. And that's really upsetting for the woman to hear. She's worked damn hard at her career. She's very good at her career. And she's been told she's only successful because of what she looks like. And that's still happening. I get messages from people going, how do I deal with it? What do I say? But yeah, the sort of LinkedIn messaging, and particularly when there's an imbalance of power, if it's a client or a manager or something. There was a study done by accident that's quite well known if you sort of into your feminism, where a guy changed his email, swapped with one of his female colleagues, and she replied to all his emails and he replied to all hers. And the actual language used was completely different. It was a lot more demand shouty or flirty. And then it was a lot more matesy, all right. And you could say exactly the same thing and one to get told, oh, all right then, and the other one to just get a new one torn. And it's that. But it's, again, I think the best way...
Do you think it's better, though? Because look,
it's definitely better.
I think that's the thing. It's like, it's not... Because we're all saying the same thing, aren't we? Like, this isn't right. This isn't how it should be. But have we... you've seen it. You've lived through this. And do you think it is getting better? Like, are we on the right roadmap to get somewhere? Because there's always going to be a bit of it. There's always going to be that dynamic between male and female, superior, and people trying to use, their power sexually. These things, unfortunately, they're always kind of going to happen. But how do you see it going forward? Do you think that people are more aware now and this is going to reduce and people are going to be more okay with actually... Because I never see people outing people. Yeah. That's the thing that surprises me, that you never see, I've had this message, cover it up, bang, and put it out online. I barely ever see that.
No.
Which interests me because there is so much of it. We've seen it even with people that have worked here. They've had the issue, but, where are we going with this?
There's a variety of reasons for that. One, there's victim blaming, if you like. It might also not be, if you're an employee, something that you can put out on social media if people know who you work for, that your employers might be dealing with it in the background. And there could be instances where that's just going to do that. And I know of several companies in our industry who've dealt with it quite seriously. And of course, if I put something out on LinkedIn, even with names retracted, that's going to affect what's being done behind the scenes. The one point I really, really want to make is I don't want there to be a road where it goes down to us and them on a gender split.
Yeah,
and it's not... One of the things we're not doing with Women with Metal is men bashing. It's not. And we don't want to be that way. Nobody wants to do that. I don't want to do that, I spent 35 years working predominantly with men. I like 99% of the ones I've come across with. And I think part of the people not pushing it too much on social media, on outing people is we can see that there's a lot of, what about men with metal, little grumbles? And it's not about that. It's about, if you go to, I don't know, UK Metals Expo or the BSSA conference, you've got a much smaller percentage of women there. It's getting better at both, yes. But when it was...
You don't have a platform, do you, really?
Yeah,
when you win every event, golf.
Sometimes
football,
you just want to sit down and have a chat.
Yeah, you do, yeah. Yeah. You know, like you mentioned in there, like, she got the order because she wears a short skirt, for an example.
I've never seen her in a short skirt. She always wears trouser suits.
How do you feel about, say, on social media, and I might not say this the best, so I apologise, doesn't come across the best way, where sometimes women can use an asset, say, of like their sales, of attracting you, and using that to sell. So it's like, if you say, look at your career, Kirsty, I mean, 15 years then I've known you, always very professional, almost, what you call it. But then there's obviously another side where you see on LinkedIn, and it's almost nothing to do with work, and it's almost a Facebook post of going around a Saturday night, and it almost, when you see the like comments, it's like 100 likes, 99 of them are men.
Can I just say I've never put a Facebook post on LinkedIn?
No. But you know, like I don't know how to say it correctly.
I know exactly what you mean.
But you know where it's almost, you've got people like yourself who are trying to promote all the amazing things, but then you look at it, and there's that minority, shall we say?
I would say it's about, well, firstly, if they want to do that, they can do that.
Yeah.
Same way someone can put a post up with their new baby and go, look, I'm a daddy, or a dog, or you know, anything like that, or on a yacht, or you know, it's their social media. They can do what they want with it.
Does it make it harder for women like yourself?
I don't think it does. I think you've got to look at, particularly if they're younger women, they're trying to find their personal brand, because particularly like Gen Z, they've lived online. They've not had periods of time when it's not been there. So they need to, as they become older and as they develop in their careers, they need to find what works for them. And what works for a 25-year-old is not going to work for a 50-odd-year-old. It's going to be completely different. You know, if I'm putting a picture up of me in awards do, it's going to be a completely different pose and picture than it is of a 22-year-old up at an awards do. And it should be. But it's also going to be exactly the same if it's a 22-year-old guy and a 52-year-old guy. Their pictures and poses are going to be different as well. And I think it's about the fact that we can't really sort of, unless you've got strong social media guidelines in your contract that you're holding people to, which most companies don't and possibly should explore, you've just got to let them be their own person. People buy from people. If their personality that helps them win clients and helps them build that reputation is going to watch Arsenal on a Saturday, or go paragliding every March, or adopt an elephant, or whatever it is, that's part of their personality, and that's what they're going to be remembered for. There's a lot of people out there trying to win the orders. You need to be remembered. And if that's because you're remembered because of a LinkedIn post that perhaps should have been on Facebook, so be it. It's only going to be the same as someone going, oh, I've got an extra ticket to the cricket, mate. Do you want to come along? Everybody uses what they've got at their disposal to try and be remembered. People do it in different ways.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by TW Metals. TW Metals are a stockholder and distributor of nickel alloy, aluminium, titanium and stainless steel products in a range of forms, including tube, bar, pipe extrusion, as well as sheet and plates. They have sites located in the UK, Europe, the USA and Southeast Asia, and are the largest supplier of aerospace tubes globally. With a whole host of accreditations and in-house processing capabilities, they are the first choice for OEMs, Tier 1s, fabricators and engineering companies across the world, and they're easy to deal with. I worked with them for many years, so I can recommend them. For more details, check out their website or even give them a call to chat about your requirements. Now let's get back to the pod.
Does it amaze you how many companies don't allow, say, in metal, for instance, embrace social media more? Because you look at it, if we were a list of the people that we see mainly, we'd have a lot of matches that we'd probably have the same people that we see. When you think of how big the sector is, there's some really, especially when you're going to, say, UK Mail Expo, the BSSA, Alfed, other associations, when you look at the main people in the room, you want to have a conversation with that person. Yet you would never find them on socials, would you? Does that surprise you, considering of how influential they are in the sector?
I think part of it is going to be generational. If they've been doing business, say, for 30 years and they've not done it that way, then there might be younger members in their team that come through and start doing that. But part of it is just generational, you know. We're really lucky to have a sector that people come into and stay for decades. That's going to give different ways of communicating with each other. There are some people who are influential in this sector. If I want to talk to them, I don't email them, I'll pick up the phone and call them. You know, they will answer the email, but they would prefer a phone call. And that's going to change, you know, coming down through all the generations from sort of, well, Gen X, which is me, down to through the millennials into Gen Z. It's, you know, we do get WhatsApps from customers purely because, oh, can you check on that for us, mate? Just because it's easy for them. So we make their life easy. But I think there is a lot more that can be done with social media. I think there are areas that we can embrace more, particularly in some sectors in the fabrication side, like TikTok, for example. PPS have got a TikTok channel. We've not got very many videos out because I started putting them out, then I realised it was another bit of metal being polished coming out of a machine. And, you know, it might be interesting to me that that's 15 mil and that's 1.2, but it's still a bit of metal coming out of a machine. Women in Industry's just gone onto TikTok, doing short clips from the podcasts. And it's about going to where your audience is. If we want to get more young people into manufacturing and engineering, we need to go to them. You know, we don't need to go to LinkedIn and go, we would like to recruit some 16-year-olds. We need to go to TikTok.
Well, let's talk about that, because you've moved into that area that I wanted to come on to anyway. So if we take away the gender side of it, looking at male and female there, let's just talk about getting young people in. When we go to events, we constantly hear the same thing about apprenticeships and training, and we need to get young people in, and it always seems to be like we need to do this, but there doesn't always seem to be the best direction of like how to actually apply it. How are you finding things with your own business in terms of getting those younger people in, and what are the problems that you think not just yourself has, but again manufacturing has in attracting people in 2024?
I would say we were having this conversation in 1990 as well, possibly earlier, but I didn't start till 89, so it's not a new conversation. And I think the answers now are pretty much what the answers were then. You need to go to them, you need to show them there's a valuable career. I think one of the things that will actually help apprenticeships, or is helping apprenticeships, move forward, because there are an awful lot of apprentices out there filling roles. There are more year on year, and that's about the student debt. When you go to university and come out with what's the average 35 grand's worth of debt, something like that. But it's about developing relationships. If you've got a local senior school, ring them up, go and see them. Talk to your local college. There are lots of specialised and specialist apprenticeship courses out there. they're not necessarily going to work with what you do. We found that. We had 3 apprentices over the last few years. None are still with us. They didn't work out for a variety of reasons.
What were the reasons? If you can talk to us about it. I'm just curious, because you won't be, like, someone will be listening to this, they'll be like, that's exactly my problem, and I can't be bothered with apprentices now because they don't work, so we'll just try and get someone experienced.
All 3 were production operatives. The first one was a young woman, and she was doing really well, but she was the only young woman on the factory floor, and we were like, she's not going to last unless we can get her a friend. We need a second young woman apprentice. We just do. We couldn't get one, and she lasted 3 or 4 months, and it wasn't for her. She was developing well, but that was the main reason. The second one just didn't want to come to work and came in when he felt like it and didn't go to college, and we didn't see him for 3 weeks, so we tried to get in touch. So I said to his line manager, I'm not paying him, I'm taking him off payroll. He's not worked any days this month, or he'd worked 2 days or something. So I took him off payroll on the day payroll went through. We'd written to him, we'd texted him, we'd WhatsApped him, rang him, nothing. Rang his parent, nothing. And the day he was due to get paid, he rang his line manager and went, why haven't you paid me? And he went, well, you haven't worked. And he went, no, I decided to go to Athens on holiday, but I can't get back unless you pay me. So he was in Greece.
Yeah.
So he didn't last after that.
Yeah.
And the third one just...
Still trying to find the reason.
He'd just sort of come in, then he'd be late, and then he wouldn't go to college, and he'd be like, why aren't you... I fancied another day off. He's like, you can't just do that.
I just think, in let's just metal manufacturing, whatever, is when you're at school, and I think of like when I was back there, I was never going to get the marks of a GCSE levels that you'd potentially want. And you end up don't knowing where your route plan's going to go. All your pals are going to sixth form, they want to go into colleges, and even college courses have want C's, B's, whatever. And I think there's a market where young people aren't spoken to about sectors like ours, where there's no entry level. You could literally just come straight in for an apprenticeship, but they don't see the bigger picture because it's never really spoken. So you can go in at kind of an operative level, warehouse apprenticeships. I've seen it with big metal groups where they're bringing in, but it's getting them like almost like the RGB model, where it's almost going, right, this is what you start off with, and you're almost sold a 12-month plan, aren't you, of what you're going to do. But I think with apprenticeships, they're too pigeonholed within a course that the provider's going, that's what I'm getting my funding through that course. Yeah. That they're too pigeonholed within what they've got to learn. Because we're seeing it with a big manufacturer in Birmingham, automotive. And when I look at it, for all the different departments they've got, when your entry level is at that, you're only learning that one thing for 3 years, it's almost seems such a big commitment. And I think at a young age, you need to almost experience loads of different jobs. When I look at how many jobs I had from 16 to maybe 20, it's a lot. And I just think I don't think it helps having almost that's one course, signed up, 3 years, whatever. It almost needs to be a bit kind of, you join a PPS and just go and enjoy it. There's the funding, look after them, see what they want to do.
We used to be able to write our own apprenticeship courses.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, we worked with an organisation in West Bromwich, and I can't remember what it's called now, Met something. It might be Metskill, don't know. But they basically tailored the apprenticeship to the company the apprentice was going in.
Yeah.
So we were like, we're going to teach them how to run that machine. We're going to teach them tolerances. We're going to teach them how to measure the RA. We're going to teach them this. We're going to teach them that. We're then going to move into that section. And it was sort of bespoke, whereas now it's like you're going onto a metal apprenticeship and they're, I don't know, bending tubes in a vice clamp at college, which we're never going to do, or they're learning how to do something else that we're never going to do. And then they'll go, well, it's really exciting. It's the polishing, sort of like bit now. Here's like a hand tool. And they're like, yeah, I use a machine that weighs like, 15 ton, because they know what they're doing by that point.
And I think it's the scary thing of thinking that's what I'm going to do with the rest of me career. You know, like that. This is me, and I think it's kind of going. If you went into an assembly at school and went, "Who's earning 100 grand a year?" People would start saying doctors and all this, and you go, well, "Someone who's running a regional director within a metals business is earning that," and they'd be allowed to do that. And it might be that you need to go in at that kind of entry level, but this is what the industry can pay. When you look at what qualifications you need to work in it, the industry pays really well. I'm not saying you're going to get to that level, but you might end up being an internal salesperson on 30k, or you know, the way minimum wage is going up, by the time they get there, it might be even more. But you look at it's not a bad lot. It's not a bad salary for just learning a trade.
And I think people underestimate a lot of the skill that goes into learning that trade, whether it's running a polishing machine, whether it's running a laser, whether it's, you know, bending or anything else that we do with metal. It's really, really essential to the end product. And that might not be something cosmetic. It might be something in a pharmaceutical tank or a nuclear plant. You know, it might be installing gas pipelines. You know, it's and welding those. It's got to be right.
The inquiries you're getting through your desk today, there'll be certain distributors who bring people in as almost academies where they've never learned, and they're ringing you up for a hot roll plate to be mirror polished.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah, but you do it, but there's almost the risk element, isn't there? Going right, the finish might not be perfect or whatever. It all depends on the base material. And then you'll be dealing with other stockists who have got people with 10 years, 15 years, and the conversations are having a completely different idea of the skill level that's involved. And it's because you must be having to educate a lot of the kind of...
Yeah, we do that anyway. It's really good. We do training days on site. We started doing it a couple of years ago, and that's really helped with, if you like, the academy people going in. So we'll either take 4 or 5 people from one distributor stockholder, or we'll do a day where we'll have people from different companies, and we go, right, okay, this is who we've got. You need to make sure that, you know, I'll talk to their gaffers and I'll go, I've got someone from this company, I've got 2 from this company. You're not in direct competition. Are you okay for them all to be in the same room? And we're just, you know, a bit polite about it. And that's been really, really useful. And yeah, that's just trying to get the knowledge out there. You know, increasing the knowledge in the sector is never a bad thing. The time of keeping trade secrets, I mean, I'm not going to tell you how I do it, but I'm going to, you know, show how it looks at the end and give you an overview. But the time where, you know, you wouldn't let people through the door and you couldn't look at this and you couldn't look at that, is all very 70s and 80s now, which is sort of, it's all about collaboration.
How are you finding minimum wage, and obviously the way that's kind of spiked up over the last couple of years? How's that affecting a business like yourselves, where I'm guessing it's, you know, you're working on specific types of margins, some of the products that you're selling, you can't necessarily go, well, I'm just going to stick another 10 or 15% on that process. How are you kind of getting over that? Because a lot of people that I'm speaking to, there is a concern that with those semi-skilled workers, which effectively you could say that you've got, that can put pressure on business owners in terms of actually making the right amount of money that you need to make your business work.
And that's the bottom line. We've got a few people on the minimum wage, and then they go up with experience and with skills. And the problem with the jump like we're having in 2024 of £1 and 2 pence an hour is that's moving people quite close to the next level up. So then we have to move them up a level, which moves them close to the next level up. So you're basically going to end up giving everybody £1 an hour increase, or a similar percentage. And of course, if they're earning £13 an hour, that's a slightly bigger percentage per hour, isn't it? And I spoke to quite a few people about this in our industry, and you know, it's going to shove a large chunk on our wage bill each year. And it's going to have to, we're just going to have to look at what that works out to a percentage on our prices.
Because this one particular isn't just, you know, typically it normally affects operational people if we're like normally. But this one, I think, actually affects even people at a junior level, let's just say a sales admin to maybe a junior sales executive. It even affects those people in the business, because when you get that salary, and I think it's 23,800 or something along those lines, once everyone goes up to that, and then the difference of, say, it's really,
if you've got
really
someone
close.
at 21 and a half, 22, whatever, which was the old sort of minimum wage, and then your next level up's 25, if you're taking those up to nearly 24, the people on 25 are going to be going, whoa,
I know.
I've got 5 years experience, I need to be on 27 and a half now.
I know.
And it's just going to do that.
That's the headache.
Yeah, it is.
Do you think, crudely, do you think it will just be one way you almost look and say, well, say I've got 50 members of staff, there's always a bit of natural wastage, people dropping off at the end, retirement and stuff like that. Do you think companies are just going to have to let that natural erosion of people at the back end of their career drop out and almost just have less people, just actually reduce down a bit of the head count and almost expect people to do a bit more? Or do you think it will be that prices will just have to increase?
I think it's going to be both. I mean, it's difficult on an operational side to reduce your headcount, because in our case, we have a man at a machine, standing at a machine, and they are all men at the moment. Unless we've got someone on holiday and I end up running a line.
Yeah.
Which I'm getting far too old to do. So if there's not someone standing at that line's not running, so it's not producing turnover. So that's really difficult to do operationally. When you look at more commercial roles, you have a level where you can't grow without more people.
Not with the same processes. I think, like when I look at, say, Pete was on about this 5 years ago, automation, all of this stuff. And there was a part of me, we had people on podcasts, and I just didn't believe any of them that it could happen. Because I just thought, I just think you speak to people, they want to deal on the phone, like you were saying earlier. I make a phone call, they want to speak to you on the phone. Then you start thinking the way people communicate in that age group we was talking about earlier, where it's emails. Like when I started that, you just call that arse covering. I'd never even send an email unless it was to cover my arse, really. But you look at it now and you think, these companies, when you look at what minimum wage is, it's like, if we've got someone who's just buying a ton pack, just DP one sheet, do we want that person ringing through who places it every week or every month? Or would we prefer them to just have a portal, fixed price, log on, go straight down to the work so it gets picked? Because it's...
What would you prefer in that scenario?
We have a mixture of both. So we have people, we don't have a portal as yet. It is something I'm looking at for us, what we call contract accounts, to build sort of a back end into our website. We had the new website last year, and that's what it will do. But I need to get my head around it first. So I'd say we're probably 2 or 3 years away from doing that. But then people have logins and they'll be able to see where their orders are going through. But with regards to automated orders, we have things just ping into inboxes. Now, we normally, because people still like talking to people, you might get a, hi, how are you? Did you have a nice weekend? Please find 17 orders attached. And then the wagon will turn up. And then other people will ring and want to chat, and it might be
5 minutes after the order's been placed.
Yeah.
Love those.
But it's one of those things, it's always going to be both, and there is always going to be the human element. Even with people who communicate more by email, yes, they might click send on an automated order system and it will just appear in people's inboxes, but then they're going to need to ask, can we change the coating on that one? And, did you go to the match on Saturday? And all those things that make actually going to work and interacting part of the enjoyment of the role.
I agree. But I just think if the wages keep going up, some of that will have to change, because I just can't see how them SME... Like, I look at it in our business, we've got, 10 people? And I look at it and think, to try and grow with how much money it costs, it's really hard now. Like we were looking at last year, just going, bring them in recruitment, they fill people, they're making money, but now you're almost have to be a bit more conservative. And I know there'll be bigger companies listening who are almost, but they're still having the same issues because their head counts of what they're wanting to do. Theirs is more political with what people are on with the training matrices, because it's like, if you don't know that skill, I can't tick it to pay you an extra 50p or whatever it may be.
And obviously the
the
market's flat this year, or it's been flatter this year. So you've almost had businesses been taken on staff, especially after COVID when everyone went and it came back. So it's almost like the wages have gone up. You've got a bigger headcount anyway. The market's slightly depressed. So it's like, it's even more difficult, isn't it, to keep that?
Just come, like you was talking earlier about robotic polishers. You look at a robotic polisher, you think that's a massive investment.
Yeah, it is.
But I don't necessarily need a really skilled person to be doing it. And
well, you would actually. You'd need
you?
someone really skilled in CAD because, you know, if you're doing 20,000 elbows all at the same size and you know, same nominal wall, that's perfectly fine. The robot can do that forever. But then if you're doing 12 of these and 7 of those and 100 of those, the CAD design inputting going into it is essential.
Because we went and saw Factory, didn't we? And we were like really, I mean, we were pretty brutal with them. We were really negative about what they were trying to do. But it was purely to give them a platform to prove us wrong, really. And they've really gone heavy on not having that personal element of the you know, the communication, but having a lot of people, like they've got a lot of CAD designers, similar to you're saying, in-house. But you can effectively send in a bill of materials, it'll just quote you straight away. You can send your own CAD drawings in, bang, there's a price. You just select what you want to do. There can still be some interaction if there are queries, but they're going down the route of going, we almost don't want to have any kind of touch point at all. We want to try and reduce it down so we can keep those headcount as low as possible. So I just wonder if...
We do that ourselves, don't we, as individuals, as consumers, when we're ordering things online.
Correct, yeah.
Even if we're having something personalised, you know, if you're ordering a new display stand for the UK Metals Expo or something like that, you know, you're just sending drawings, getting things back. You're never talking to anybody.
Well, I ordered a car yesterday and it was approved the same day. I didn't talk to anyone. I just filled in a form. It took me about 10 minutes on my phone. Done. That was it. You know, and it's like, so I'm almost like, even with what you're trying to do.
Lamborghini would have given you a call when you mate.
I know, mate. Yeah, Skoda are amazing, mate.
But it's a shame of that, isn't it? That's the sad thing, because what we've talked about today, building relationships, putting yourself out there, all of those things. But the same way to survive, and in some cases it will be for a lot of companies where they're looking at it and they can't compete. I mean, we're speaking to companies who are like got really old machines, and they're having to come to us now and give us recruitment and go, realistically, if we don't find these people, that machine's down, I'm not fulfilling orders. And there are companies who are saying, we don't really even want to use you, but if we can't find them, but this is the difference between, and you think, and then when they're talking about salaries and hourly rate, they've almost let a really experienced person go to either a bigger company or in some cases similar size, because their pay rates are so off. They almost think that they're paying well when it's, I think we priced a press brake operator the other day. It was like salary and words, like 32k. Now that 32k, I left the industry on that with 10 years experience of selling. So when you're looking at an operator now on that type of money, that's frightening.
Do you think you'll have
unsustainable.
Do you think you'll have to, as a business, like you'll really have to go down that automation route and obviously get these portals in place so businesses can just order. I know that you're always going to want to have that personal touch. That's obvious.
Yeah.
You know, you want to have those conversations. From conversations, you spot other opportunities, you pick bigger. So you never want to completely lose that. But do you think that your business over the next 10 years for you, that you'll end up with fewer people within your business, but you'll be doing a lot more because the split will maybe go 70-30 or 80-20, where it's effectively it's all done online?
I think there will be an element of it. I mean, we're a lot more production operatives based than commercial anyway. And being a free issue polisher, we do a lot of running up and down the stairs to look at some metal and ring a customer up and go, you know, you said you were sending in 304, this is actually 316. Or there's a massive pit mark on the B side that's not going to come out, or we've opened the pack that's come direct from the mill for you and it's got laminations in it. You know, if we're all automated and it goes through to a polishing machine and the machine polishes it and human eyes don't look at it, there's going to be a lot of instances where the finish isn't suitable for the end user. And because it's got a layer of sticky tape on and then gets fabricated and then the tape gets pulled up when it's inside a tank halfway up a building, the other side of the world, it has to be right before that tape goes on. We've looked at all sorts of inspection camera software, not to replace people, but to help. And, you know, we're looking at these things going forwards. We're not burying our head in the sand about it. And at the moment, they're A, very expensive, and B, not good enough to identify what a trained person can. So they're not actually going to assist them, they're going to hinder them. But yeah, I think there is going to be cases where we've got portals on submit your order here. And if you want a real-time update on your polishing order, check here. We're trialling some software at the moment that's going to help the commercial team be able to give them that without going, well, it's on the schedule, it's 3 jobs back, I wonder where he's got to on the job he's running. Let me run over to Factory 2 and find out. So we're already trialling software on that. So it's...
So you're kind of saying it's coming.
It's coming.
But obviously you're quite unique, I think.
It's still always going to have...
Yeah, that's the main point, isn't it, with like
touch.
robotics. I mean, it's like when we went to Farnborough a couple of years ago, and there was that company with almost the...
Banner.
Yeah, the robotic arms and everything. And when you look at what they're trying to do with, say, sheep packs, where it's almost packed out and then put on... It's like, for how much that investment costs, it's like you could have 10 operatives. I know it's like one-off of the thing that the people are going, but it's not.
But Kirsty wants a robot.
I do.
She's going to have a robot. She's going to have a robot. But
I'm probably going to go cobots.
That'll bring in a different revenue stream. But to go from, say, picking up one, you know, just picking sheep, for an example, and then just loading it onto a laser cutter, that amount of money, it's like the cost of what they're selling at to what really, that's why people are, even at this rate they're having to pay, it's still, you'd rather have a person, wouldn't you?
Well, yes-ish, and rates
robots
do come
don't
down.
ring in sick.
Well, it's when we first automated one of our door polishing sheet lines, which was early 90s. Yeah. You know, we'd have a sheet polishing line. You'd have the polishing operator on the ingoing side, who would roll the sheet along the conveyor into the machine, adjust the machine. It would then tootle down the conveyor, and somebody at the other end would roll it out through the coater and take it and move the sheet onto the pack. It'd come straight off the conveyor onto the pack. And when we first put automatic pick and placing on both ends, people were like, "Oh, I'm faster than it." And I said, "You might be at 8:05 on a Monday morning, but I bet you're not at 4:10 on a Friday afternoon."
Fair.
Because you've been doing that all week. And it's about consistency.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a recruitment agency operating in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. With a large, engaged network of candidates and clients, we help businesses make great hires in sales, operational, technical, quality and managerial roles, as well as assisting people in their careers by matching their unique skills and aspirations to businesses that are hiring. Having worked with more than 200 niche businesses since 2019, Compton Group have become the go-to recruitment partner for many of our industry's leading names. So talk to us about your next career move or let us work with you on your business's next hire. Compton Group, powering employment in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. I wanted to talk about time management.
Okay.
Because you've got PPS, which is obviously that's your bread and butter, that's your day job. Yeah. You're doing a lot of additional events, you're on boards, you're pretty active with your social life as well. Plus you've got these other 2 things with your podcast and the Women with Metal event, which is obviously something that you're really passionate about. So you're spinning a lot of plates. We've done that within our own business and we know just how difficult that is. So how are you managing that? What's a day-to-day Kirsty day look like?
Oh.
Peloton first.
No, dogs first, Peloton second. I am naturally a morning person, which helps. So I get up at 4:30, sort the dogs out. First cigarette and cup of coffee of the day. I know I'm a bad person. I do a Peloton workout, and we're at work for about 6:30. I try and take the first hour to do anything managing directory. Yeah. I do get phone calls at 7:00 going, I thought you'd be there, but I don't get that many. So that's all cash flow, finance, anything HR that has been passed to me, anything like that, any industry papers I'm working on. And then by 8:00, everyone's in, lines are all going, from those that start after 6. And I love a good colour coordinated calendar. I block my time out. And I literally put block in it, and I'll take 2 hours and it'll just say block, just so no one can book into my calendar. I send calendar links out for the podcast, and a couple of the team have got links to that so they can book customers in with me or see if I'm free. But I colour coordinate, and I try and keep things balanced. And one day a week, normally on a Friday, I know it sounds silly, try and take first phone call for a few hours. So I'm doing the, hi, yeah, no problem, let me check on that job for you. Yeah, one sheet, minimum order. So I'm sort of still relevant rather than hiding in the cupboard. But yeah, you have to. I'm addicted to my phone. I answer emails up until I go to bed if they come through. I try and work off one screen, but I often work off 2. And the busier I am, the more my brain seems to work and fires on more cylinders. So if I'm having a fairly quiet day where I haven't got anything particularly deadline-y going on, I get less done than I do if I'm running from there to here to there. So, I must send that email. I forgot to ask them about that. And my brain works quicker. I wonder if someone's heard from that customer about that big project. I work better and more efficiently the busier I am. But I'm also in bed by 9:00 at night.
Your day is very much like mine. By all the stuff, that's like me, 9:00, like, gotta be in bed.
Yeah.
Not 4:30. I tried that. I can't do it. 5 is my...
Unsustainable, apparently.
I couldn't do it. I tried to do 4, and I just, like, between 5 and half 5, gone in the office for 7, literally, and like phone calls then up to like 8, and I'm like, some nights it's just like, I find it hard on those days, them really busy days with yours, just for them bed to happen at 9, because your brain is just...
You're wired.
I think it depends what you do when you get home. We've always, apart from when we don't, but we have a standing rule that we go at 5, unless we're holed up with engineers. And I've been, in charge of a pendant crane at 10:00 at night, while, we're getting installations done, or when we've had really big projects and we're loading wagons at 10 and stuff like that. But 99 times out of 100, we go at 5:00. I'm still checking my email on the way home. I'm not the designated driver.
I was waiting for that, yeah.
Sounds like my wife.
I'm still checking email at the way home. We go down some country lanes. Like as soon as we come out the country lane, I'm like, I'll have a signal. Have I got an email? But when we get in, we try and stick to a routine. I'm normally out. When we lived in the old house, which was really close to Birmingham city centre, I'd probably be out 2 nights a week at networking events or business meetings or conferences in Birmingham, because it was really close. Now it's an hour away. I'll probably do 2 a month, and I'll pick and choose quite strategically, either that's really going to enhance PPS, or there might be somebody there I want to talk to, or it's the theatre. I pick and choose what I want to do.
Yeah, it's got to add value. There's so many networking events that just don't add any value, do they? Not to our sector. I mean, obviously, if you're just a bit broader business, I mean, you probably have the same as us, where you have those breakfast meetings in Birmingham, and you just don't. You can just have almost like a wasted morning. We went through that in year 1. We almost tried to do as many as we could, but for our sector, it's you just get no to finance, and
I found them quite useful when I was sort of moving up the ranks, because I hadn't got any role models. There was no one I could ring up and say, can you be my mentor? And I don't think mentors were invented in the 90s, or at least not in the metal sector. So it was really quite useful to me to meet women who'd become very senior. I was sort of unofficially mentored by Anne Davies, who was the first female partner in the UK at KPMG. And we still meet up for lunch once a year. She's retired now. And she was in charge of all the accountancy things when we came out of Hong Kong. So she's had a real high-flying career. And that was useful just to see how she did her job, because it was going to be completely different to how I did mine, but it almost helps you find the confidence within yourself that you're doing okay, and that it's okay to be yourself while you're doing it. We can't all be carbon copies of each other, and you've got to expect that there are going to be people who don't like you, and that's okay as well. It's quite hard for you to understand that, and like on an emotional level, but it's like you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
like P% of the BSSA, there's people in this room who don't like me.
Yeah.
I put my hand up. I thought we were meant to be voting.
Both hands.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
But time management, it's going back to that, because you did ask.
Yeah.
It's got to be specific to you, and it's got to take into account your strengths and weaknesses. If you are really productive in silence without phones ringing and people knocking on your door and asking you questions, then when can you find time to do that? Is it at 7 o'clock? Can you talk to your line manager and go, look, I've done an experiment for a week. I came in at 7. I was really productive. You can see the results. Can I work 7 till 4 instead of 8 till 5? Have a conversation. See if that flexibility is there. But you've got to prove the results first. And I think if you're in an industry that does have a lot of networking, the first job my son had, he worked for a company in Birmingham and was expected to be at 2 or 3 networking events every evening. And he started
2 or 3 a night or a week?
No, sometimes it'd be 2 or 3. No, it's 2 or 3 a week.
Yeah.
But some of them were like balls, so he'd like get to go as a perk, but then he'd have to get a taxi home, and it'd be like 40 quid, and that wouldn't be paid for.
Yeah.
And I added it up the 1 month, and I was like, you've not actually earned minimum wage in the hours you've worked. And he was like, but they buy me a beer, so that's... I said, it's not legally correct. I'm sorry. You can either do it, but the fact it's part of your role, you should be paid for it.
But what do you think of that kind of... Because we see all this, the 4-hour working week, side hustles, less is more, your mental health is really important and stuff. I think the way I've always worked is you just keep working. Obviously, you've got the same, just work. You're saying the same. So for younger people, like, what do you think of that work-life balance? Because that seems to be like a big topic now.
I think that there is going to be a shift into younger people coming into our industry and just not understanding that it's always been like this. And I think there will be change, but I don't think it's going to be quick. If we look at the 4-day working week, some companies have successfully implemented that. Some companies say they've successfully implemented that, but I don't really think they have. And others are going, it's just not going to suit us. I was at a dinner with a load of consultants going, how can we get, more women into manufacturing, and how can we get young people in? And I was there with another MD, Nat McCauley from JCM Fine Joinery. She's in, obviously, the joinery industry. And we were the 2 manufacturers of choice. And we were just like, you can't go, manufacturing can be hybrid now. We can have more women in because they can do the school run and stay at home and just do finance and HR. because some roles will do to that, but you can't do that in SMEs. And what you're going to do is you're going to make the gender balance worse because it's going to be an us and them. You know, we spent years getting rid of the us and them between production teams and commercial teams. You want to bring it back and throw homeworking and gender inequality into it compared to the men. That's just a road no woman wants to go down. And then if you look at the 4-day working week, and we're not going to produce on a Friday, but everybody's going to work longer Monday to Thursday, what about the young dad who's just got a new baby at home? He's going to leave for work while the baby's asleep and get home when the baby's gone to bed. He's not going to see his kids. So that's, if you're working, I don't know, 6 till 7, and then you've got half hour to get home, if you've got any child under 5, they're in bed by 7:30, you're not seeing them overnight. No father wants that, but to have a Friday off...
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think because you could maybe do if you were looking at your own business, you could probably do a 4-day working week with your commercial team, but your operational team, just for having like lorries coming in and out, you can't say to all your clients, oh, you can't deliver on Friday now, or you can't collect on Friday.
If a customer rings me up and goes, this has gone horribly wrong, if I get these sheets into you on Thursday, I've got to pick them up at 10 o'clock on Friday to get them on site. I can't go, we don't polish anything on Friday.
Well, my competitor does. I'll give you his number.
Yeah.
Or her number.
It's you just... And again, with the commercial team, you're going back to the us and them. And we don't want that. We want to be a team.
I think since COVID, it's been a candidate market. I think they've had it their own way for so long. Salaries, car allowance, company car, whatever it may be, they've had it their own way. And I just think...
It will
4-day
change.
week. Yeah, it's got to change. It's the only way. But the only way, unfortunately, for that to change is that the industry has to make a load of redundancies and they take control of going, well, I've got a job here.
Who wants it?
Who wants it, and you've got to change. And I think since COVID, we've seen it where people are making new arrangements, brought a dog, or whatever it may be. When I come back, I've got quite used to saving the money on the childcare before school or after school clubs and all this, and it's companies have just got, everyone's almost got their own perk in a business. Your perk is coming in at 10 on a Thursday perhaps, and your perk, and I think it's disastrous. I don't know, but I'm a workaholic. I can't function without work, so I probably have the wrong view on it, but I do think it's, like you mentioned there, isn't it? You've got a young child, you're not going to see it, but then I look at it from my upbringing, it was almost like I'd never see my dad in the week. It was work. And it was almost, I'm not saying it's right, but then it's like, probably a bit like with my kids, it's almost like, it almost comes second. But you almost feel bad with the way the world is now that you feel bad for saying it. But I look at it and go, without work, I can't do what I can do on a Saturday, Sunday, have all my focus. But in the week, it's you're almost second.
Sounds flippant, but I sent my son to boarding school so I could work longer.
Yeah.
And it's not quite true. It worked for us.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a contributing factor.
Yeah. I just think, but I think in the way the world is, you feel bad for saying it, but I look at it and almost be like, well, the end result, hopefully, I look at it now with my dad, he's there for me now as an adult. And really, as a kid, I didn't really need him. As long as you had your essentials, you don't need a lot as a kid, do you? You didn't then. But now he's there to sort everything out that you need. I think you have more issues as an adult than you definitely do as a child if you're lucky. But yeah, I don't know. I just think all of it's just gone too much. Where I think companies are having, and not just SMEs. Like really, if you look at it, for an SME, it's almost easier to recruit than it is to a corporate because they can offer anything. But I think it's gone way too far, especially with like what you are expected to have to do as a business now. It's almost like you have to pander, take all the risks financially. There's what's the reward really when you look at it? Sometimes you look at it sometimes and think, well, I'll be better off being an employee than I would be about a business owner. Sure, that can't be right. I don't know.
I think it comes back down to what we were talking about earlier. It's about how passionate you are in achieving those things. And you're going to do that whether you're an employee or an employer. And you take the risks and they might work or they might not work. Every business goes through cycles where You're sort of like, biting your nails at 2:00 in the morning and lying there and how can we make this better? How can we make that better? How can we, reduce those costs and increase output, increase turnover, increase profit? And the majority of it, unless you do something really stupid and wrong, but the majority of it is outside your control. It's outside anything you can influence. It's about how much the material costs, so the end user changes from polished stainless steel to painted steel. It's about a container ship getting stuck in the Suez Canal. It's about someone not building that nuclear power plant. It's about someone not changing the stainless steel polished kitchen in their local Wetherspoons every 5 years because they can probably get 7 years out of it. And all of those have a knock-on effect to the amount of metal that's used, consumed, processed, installed and sold in our industry. And a lot of those we can't influence.
No, you're not wrong. How long's professional polishing been in your family for?
40 years.
And you've been in it for 35?
Yeah.
Wow. So what's the story of how it actually got started then?
My dad was the works manager at Cashmore's.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
About 14 years. He was at Firth Vickers prior to that.
Cashmore's really helped out as well, didn't they? With
Yeah,
that
they
kind
were
of
really
transition, they actually like set up with their machines. You said,
Yeah,
didn't you?
so one of his projects was to put their polishing kit in the 80s, 70s, 80s. No,
Yeah.
I forgot how old I was then,
Yeah.
in the 60s.
Yeah.
I know one of the ones we had was installed at Cashmore the year I was born, which was early 70s. And then there was one of the usual industry calls in the 80s, early 80s. He had to make a load of people redundant, came back after Easter and he got made redundant. And he decided to set up on his own. They flogged him the 2 machines. I think it was 2, might have been 3. I took a little 3,000 square foot unit and set up.
How
And the
old
rest is
was
history.
you then? Like 15 or what?
No, I was 11 when we set up, yeah.
Was it like a massive thing in your house when it was going on, or was you just completely unaware?
Wasn't. We knew he was going to do it. We knew he'd been made redundant. A lot of my friends' dads at school had been made redundant. And I remember me and my little brother going, we'll stop having like our weekly comics because we won't have any money. But we didn't think we were going to lose the house. It wasn't until he changed his car and came round to pick me up from a friend's house. My friend's parents were like, oh my God, I love the car. And it was a Ford Capri in gold with a brown leather. It was like a convertible, like a brown leather roof. And that was the first time I remember realising cars were status symbols. I'd never thought about it. But no, our life didn't really change.
Kirsty's still got the Capri.
Yeah.
I don't really
she's
do cars.
never made any more money.
Yeah, it's the Paul car.
If my dad listens to this, you can guarantee I'll get a phone call going, it wasn't a Capri, it was I'm sure it was.
Yeah, it was definitely a Capri.
When did you get the bug for it then?
I came to PPS for 6 weeks in between college courses. I was going to become a lawyer. I was going to Cambridge to do law
Nice.
and never left. So,
And was your brother ever interested in it or
No.
not? No.
no, he's an accountant. He's got a lot more money than me. Yeah. He's a director of a multi-branch, multi-turnover accountancy firm. Yeah.
Is he a show-off? Was it just you?
No, he shows off in other ways.
Yeah.
With his Lotus car. I think I think he got rid of the black one. He's got a red one now. So yeah, he's doing all right. Yeah.
Well, look, thanks for joining us, Kirsty. It's been interesting watching like what's been happening in this last year and a half, 2 years of your career. I think you're right. That idea of having, what's going to be my legacy? What am I trying to do? It can sound a bit. It can sound a bit knobby, can't it, when you say, "Oh, what's me?" But I think realistically, sometimes having that kind of goal and having that reality check, which is, I haven't got that much time left. It's impressive, like what you've achieved in such a short amount of time towards the back end of your career, if I'm okay to say that. So
No,
really
you're not.
interested to see how that kind of progresses. But thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And
Well, I tell you what, mate, that ending's very BBC, isn't it, for you?
I've barely said anything. I've barely said a word in this podcast. I've just listened to you.
What's that program
Great.
as a kid? This is your life.
Oh, Jack and
Oh,
Aura.
yeah, the back end of your career. Jesus.
Back end of your career.
I know.
know.
Just talking about, discrimination in the workplace.
All right, we can stop it here. Anyway, thanks for listening.
That was nice to have Kirsty on. You could tell she's definitely done podcasts before, can you?
She's done more than we have.
Yep.
She's been churning them, absolutely churning them. I thought she came across really well. She was different to how I thought she would be, and it was just so relaxed. It was so chill, that podcast. I mean, I barely said anything. I think I said it in the podcast at the time. I think for the last half an hour, I think I barely spoke. I was just listening to the two of you, having a natter, really. But I hope you've enjoyed that podcast and, taken something from it. I think we were both pretty impressed by the way Kirsty is, I think with her podcast, but also her event that she's put on, it's kind of come from nowhere and it's grown really quick. And I think there's huge legs. Again, I said it in the pod. It's
You've obviously been to the first two.
The first one I went to, and then I went to like a regional event as well.
So the kind of the first two events she's put on.
Correct, yeah.
What's the main taking point? What for people who haven't been before, who may be looking forward to this year's, or people who are kind of wanting to go but for whatever reason haven't gone? Well, what can people expect from that day?
I think when you typically go to association events, now we're affiliated to quite a few associations, so I don't want this to come across negatively. But I think you can typically go to association events and the discussion about what's going on in the industry is great. I then think you can end up with a load of people just pitching. And I think that's not great. I think typically I go and talk at a few of these events and I always try and give value. I try and go, right, well, what can someone learn? It's not a pitch. It's just...
So what are women learning?
When you go to these events, the first event, it was giving value. So there was talks about social media. There was talks about discrimination in the workplace. There was talks about the menopause. There was talks about women being empowered to try and get promotions and how to ask for pay rises. It was all about learning. It was all value. Obviously, it was pointed towards a female audience, but myself, Jacob and Harrison, who was helping me film the event, we all left feeling like we'd learned something. It was a very valuable event, and I think what she's going to be trying to do as she develops it, and again, forgive me if I've got this slightly wrong, Kirsty, is it's meant to be an event where people turn up and they learn about business. It's called Women with Metal, so that's the demographic or the market that she's trying to hit and the people that she wants to turn up there. But this is a very valuable event, irrespective of gender. So the next event that she's doing, I think September this year, there'll probably be around 300 people. It's at the ICC, so it's grown really quickly. She's doing an event in Germany, I believe, as well. She's doing these regional events, but all of the events are for the betterment of people's professional careers. And the two I went to, the first one, which was the initial Women with Metal, and then this regional event she did in January, they were both great events, really, really valuable events. And I felt pretty privileged actually to be there as a guy. There was me and Rob from the BSSA turned up. We were the only guys in the room, but it was a good event. And fair play to you for putting it together so quickly, Kirsty, and good luck with it as it kind of goes forward.
Very good. Well, thanks to our sponsors.
Yeah, Women with Metal haven't sponsored this. Sounds like it, doesn't it? I mean, that was a pitch.
Yeah.
I've just said don't pitch.
Thanks to our sponsors, Steelboy, TW Metals, and of course Compton Group. And we'll see you all next Tuesday.
Yeah, take it easy. Thanks for listening.